Nadia, go ahead.
Thank you.
No, go ahead.
I just want to follow up what the Secretary said. He said that the State Department does not practice double standard when it comes to Ukraine and Gaza in terms of human rights violation. I mean, I want to put aside whether it is targeting civilians, whether it's mass graves that have been discovered, whatever. I just want to ask you specifically on the statement that the Secretary made, and he said Russia is committing war crimes when it cuts off water, electricity, and fuel on a civilian population. Israel did exactly the same. How can you say that Russia is committing a war crime and the Israelis are not? What's the technical difference?
So I would say that we have engaged with the government of Israel to get more humanitarian assistance, and we have seen them take steps to allow more humanitarian assistance in. That is fundamentally the difference. And we have seen over the past few days Israel repairing water pipes to ensure that water can get in. And of course, they were letting water flow in through Rafah and through Kerem Shalom, along with food and other medicine and other humanitarian assistance. Now, that said, it has also been our assessment that that has not been sufficient and that they needed to allow more in, which is why you've seen us engage at the highest levels of the government, including President Biden himself making quite clear to Prime Minister Netanyahu that they needed to do more, and that our policy would be that the policy determinations we make will depend on the decisions that Israel makes. So there is a difference in the situation in how Russia has behaved and how Israel has behaved, and we have engaged with Israel to see them allow more humanitarian assistance in. It's not something you can say about Russia, which has continued to intentionally target civilians. As the Secretary made clear, one of the big differences in this conflict is that you have in Gaza a terrorist organization that's embedding itself inside a civilian population. The Ukrainian military doesn't do that. It's not something, and so that makes the entire nature of the conflict different, but it doesn't change the standard that we expect Israel to hold itself to.
Right. But legally, that's even, you cannot target civilians, even if you have a terrorist organization embedded in hospitals and schools.
Of course not. That's what I mean. That's what I mean about it doesn't change the standard that Israel should be held to. Absolutely.
Right. And just one last thing also about what he said. He said, like, there is a difference between dictatorship and democracy in terms of investigation. Israel does its own investigation. I'm just wondering, because Israel is not just the democracy in Israel is not analogous to Western Europe or to the United States, because it's still an occupying force, and that's the difference, fundamental difference between Israel and the rest of the democracies, because it has an army that's occupying people by force in the West Bank and Gaza as well, even if they withdraw the troops. So my question to you is this, how do you judge him if most of this investigation, basically the results have no accountability for most of the soldiers, because even if it's a democracy, Israel does not have a track record of investigating itself and give us a credible record that we can go by and we say, yes, they are right, because they are capable of doing that.
So a few things. First, just broadly speaking, Israel is a democracy, and Israel does have checks and balances inside its system that are very different than when you look at Russia. Israel does have a track record of conducting investigations into its military and at times imposing accountability measures. We have seen them do that. They have made those accountability measures in public in the past. It doesn't mean that those are always at the level that we would want from the United States government. It doesn't mean it's always at the level that other interested parties would want. But they do have a track record, including in this conflict, of opening investigations. They don't always publicize them, but they have made us aware of investigations that they are conducting. And we will look to see that those investigations are fair, and that if accountability is merited, that accountability is what is imposed. And so they have a long track record of going back of investigating soldiers and others who take actions that are inconsistent with humanitarian law or inconsistent with the Israeli military code of conduct. But that said, we also make our own assessments. And we will make our own assessments based on the facts, based on the law, and we will call it like we see it. But I do think it is a bit of a false equivalency. It's not to say, and by that I mean, I'm not trying to criticize you. It's not to say that Israel should be immune from criticism. They absolutely shouldn't. But it is a very different system than Russia and other countries that have no. Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm not quibbling with your question at all. with other countries that have no means of mechanism, or that don't have a free press that demands accountability, or don't have freedom of speech and open debate. You see protests in Israel. You see the free press digging into things that they're doing. And you, of course, see their own internal accountability mechanisms. But as I said, we will continue to monitor and make our own assessments. Humera.